still open, but not for long, and there's currently an evacuation order in place for Keaton Beach.
And all of Taylor County, including the county seat where we're staying in Perry, about 25 miles north of here. This is the beautiful, small and quaint Keaton Beach this morning. And look at the Gulf of Mexico. Hardly just a ripple right now. That is going to change completely by this time tomorrow. And tomorrow evening, this could be the landfall. This could be ground zero somewhere in this area along the Gulf Coast. And they've been hit several times. Idalia last year, big surge. Also Debbie earlier this year. And the building codes were actually changed after the 1993 superstorm, which produced an 8-foot surge here. That was in March. And remember, that brought a lot of snow, Atlanta, and all the way up the eastern seaboard. So they're well preserved here, these houses, and a lot of them are up 15 to 20 feet on stilts. By the way, already we have our first flash flood warning in Florida. This is to our north and northwest. This is parts of Franklin County and Liberty counties. They've already had upwards of 2 to 3 inches of rain. You can see that on the radar. Now, this is really not directly from Helene, but moisture coming in from the Gulf of Mexico, and it's moving north-northeast. They've already had upwards of 2 to 3 inches, and they're expecting more rain. You can see the heavy rain on the radar, and that goes until 11:30 this morning Eastern time. Back here at Keaton Beach, everybody is getting ready. Perry and Taylor County, folks are battening down because they went through Idalia. They had a lot of trees blown down. Power outages is pretty much a given in many communities, not only here, but well north into Georgia because of the fast movement of the storm. The strong winds are going to be carried farther inland. Plus, the soil's going to get super saturated, so trees have a better chance of getting uprooted and falling down on houses and cars and power lines. That's why we urge you to stay in the house as Helene comes through later tomorrow into Friday, all the way to Atlanta, Augusta, even Greenville, South Carolina. Of course, up there in the upstate of South Carolina and the North Georgia mountains and the Smokies, the southern Appalachians, the concern there is for significant and potentially catastrophic flash flooding because of the rainfall totals of 6 to 12 inches and also the elevation. Plus, it's going to come down very hard because the storm is fast moving. It's not going to rain for 12, 15 hours. Heaviest rain is going to fall in fewer hours than that. So, Stephen and Kendall, all is quiet this morning. We had a beautiful sunrise here at Keaton Beach. And I hate to use the cliche, but I will. The calm before the storm. And that's what we've got this morning. A light breeze from the east coming in this direction. But it's this area, Steenhatchee, Dickel Beach over here, just to our west. Those are basically the areas that are populated right near the Gulf. Everybody else is inland. This is not a very highly populated area, as I mentioned earlier. The whole county only has 22,000 residents. No shelters there because the whole county is under a mandatory evacuation, but there are shelters to the east in Alachua County, and that's the place to go if you need shelter. They will open later on this afternoon at 4 p.m.
Mike, eerily quiet looking at that Gulf of Mexico right behind you as we're just awaiting for what you said perhaps could be a very likely ground zero for Helene's landfall. Mike Seidel in Keaton Beach, thank you for that update.
You know, Mike said calm before the storm because I made him say it last hour.
Yeah, a major hurricane at landfall. And we want to turn our attention to Keaton Beach, Florida, where our storm specialist Mike Seidel is on the ground. Mike, the window to prepare for this dangerous storm, it's still open, but not for long.
Yeah, today is it because things are going to go downhill tomorrow. We're out here at Keaton Beach, a little beach. You can see the width of it. It's kind of a very, slow feeling out here today because a lot of folks are evacuating. This county has a mandatory evacuation, the entire county, and they're urging folks to go over to Gainesville, Alachua County. That's over on the interstate, and that's about 2 hours away. So they want everybody to get out of the county. We'll see how many of the 22,000 residents do that. As far as the surge, look at the bottom of the palm frond, the lowest palm frond. That's about 15 feet. National Hurricane Center says 10 to 15 feet, normally high ground at high tide. Well, the tide here doesn't have much of a change. From low tide tomorrow afternoon at 5:33 to high tide early on Friday morning, 7/10 of a foot. That's about, what, 8.5 inches. So the time of the tide is not really going to impact the total surge. For what it's worth. I wanted to throw that out because in some cases, like on the East Coast, we have larger tidal ranges. We're going to take a walk out on the street here and show you the homes. This is the very end of the road as far as you can go south to the Gulf of Mexico, which this morning is very, very tranquil, just some ripples out there, and that certainly is going to change where that wind starts to pick up, and that wind energy is transferred to the wave energy on the surface. These folks were here earlier on the left. They had a camper to a truck. They have hightailed it out of here. Their house is not high, very high up, maybe about 8 or 9 feet. So if we get that high-end surge, they could have water in their house. Let's hope not. Let's hope not. We'll come down the street here. We'll have Richard shoot down the street here, looking up the street here in Keaton Beach. And notice the height of the homes built really high, especially these right here. This one right here is up about 20 feet. And if you look up there on the first floor, which is way above the ground, you'll notice that they are boarding that home up. They don't have those shutters you just pull closed. And look down the beach here. These houses are fairly high up. That one that's white is also up about 20 feet. And they changed the building codes after the superstorm in 1993. That was that big winter storm, late winter storm in March 13th, the one that brought all the snow up through the Appalachians and all the wind and rain and snow up into the Northeast. Well, here they had an 8-foot surge. So you can imagine water up to about here, and these homes weren't built this high up, so they changed the building codes, and now homes are being built higher up. Other thing we want to talk about is the strong winds. They're going to go well inland, but there's going to be a lot of low-level wind shear, and the Storm Prediction Center has an enhanced risk of severe weather, and that means tornadoes, especially in parts of eastern Georgia and southeastern parts of South Carolina, basically Savannah, Hilton Head, Charleston, because of the low-level spin. And this thing is going to be hauling through Georgia, basically up 75, that the tornado threat's going to increase tomorrow evening and overnight, and it's a slam-dunk guarantee, Stephen. We are going to have tornado watches issued. Not so much for here, but here they've got all kinds of issues. Wind gust over 100 miles an hour easily, the surge 10, maybe 15 feet, and then you throw in, 8 to 12 inches of rainfall. That's probably the least of their worries now. It's the surge and the sheer value of the wind, especially inland where we're going to be in Perry, because there it's not a surge issue, it's the winds and trees down, and another slam dunk, guys, is the power is going to go out. For Michael, it was out for 9 days at St. George Island. I talked to a couple of sheriffs here, and for Adalia, their power was out for a week. That was last year. So Adalia was about a week. This may come in stronger, but if you're in this area and you're staying put, remember, you need to have those essentials, non-perishable items. Make sure you have everything ready to go, batteries charged. If you got the generator, make sure it's working. Remember, if you've had a generator or haven't turned it on for a while, the gas may have gone bad, so make sure you pull it. I talked to some lady at the restaurant last night, and they luckily drained all the gas out, put gas in, they pulled it twice, and it started. So all kinds of things you need to be doing today and tonight ahead of Helene's landfall in this area right here. The Big Bend of Florida is going to be ground zero.
And Mike, remembering that no two storms are alike, and that although there are similarities between Adalia and Helene, we are anticipating Helene to be much larger and also faster. So that is an unfortunate situation as that window to prepare is closing. Fox Weather's Mike Seidel in Keaton Beach. Thank you for the update.
All right, now, Helene, it's not going.
Specialist Mike Seidel is on the ground. Mike, you moved out there a little farther over to the east, but right where you're standing is pretty much the X marks for the danger zone. I mean, you've got all the threats headed towards you by tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, this is basically ground zero. Somewhere in the Big Bend, we've got Deacle Beach, Keaton Beach over there in the distance. You can't see it, but Steenhatchee, excuse me, that's where we were for the landfall of Debbie. Now, that came in as a Cat 1, and it wasn't much of an eye. It was basically the eye wall came through, and then the winds died down. But then we had all the rainfall up in Live Oak and then up towards Charleston and Savannah and those areas. This is going to come in at least as a 2, if not a 3, maybe even higher. The official forecast is a high-end 3, and landfall tomorrow evening. I mean, if you look at the point on the Hurricane Center track, it's basically right on the coast at 7 p.m. Eastern. So in that time frame, right around sundown, unfortunately. Seems like all the big hurricanes come in and do the worst damage after dark. That's just what it seems like to me, covering them for so many years. So it comes in, and this is, as I mentioned, ground zero. The surge forecast here from the Hurricane Center has not changed. It's still 10 to 15 feet. There's very little tidal range here, as I mentioned earlier, less than a foot. Low tide is 5:33 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. So that's really not going to matter whether the surge hits at 6 or 7 or 8 because you don't have a big range. We're talking about 7 or 8 inches. This is unlike other areas like as you go up the East Coast where you have tidal ranges 4, 5, 6 feet and higher up towards New England. How high is the water going to get? Well, we've been showing you this palm tree. Take a look at the bottom of the frond, the lowest frond. That's about, I'm estimating, about 15 feet. So if it maxes out, it would be up to the top of the frond. As you can imagine, because of the issues with surge here, not only from hurricanes, but just from strong winter storms. Remember the March storm of '93, the superstorm? 8 feet here, and they changed the building codes. All this, it's all concrete. The picnic tables, the shed and everything like that, that's all concrete. And so as a result, that's going to be fine. Now look at the road, down the road here, and just take a look at the houses and how they're built, how strong they are. And how, you know, it's concrete columns. Some of those go up about 20 feet. And over there, now this house goes up about 8 or 9 feet. And so that's marginal. If you get a 15-foot surge, you're going to have water in the first floor. So that's what we're looking at, Bob Van Dillen. The worst hits here after lunchtime tomorrow, but then the crunch time is going to be late afternoon through about mid-evening, but it's going to be moving fast, so the surge is going to come up and then go back out, and we're going to get rid of the wind pretty quickly. But for 4 or 5 hours, it's going to be pretty sporty out here, and I don't think many, if any people, are going to be staying put here. I know the house there, they're boarding up, nobody's staying there. And a lot of these people are going to head up to Perry. That's about 20 miles inland, that's where we'll be, and that takes care of one of the factors. It takes out the storm surge risk, but we still have the wind risk. 100-mile-an-hour wind gusts, knocking down trees, power is going to go out. That's a guarantee. That's a slam dunk. And the threat for 10 to 12 inches of rainfall causing flash flooding. The only fortunate thing is it's going to hit fast and move out fast, but it doesn't matter. The damage will be done whether it takes 3 or 4 hours or 8 or 9 hours.
Yeah, Mike, I see nobody behind you right now. Are there mandatory evacuations right where you're standing?
Yeah, the whole county. I was talking about this the other day, yesterday. The only other county I can remember having a complete mandatory evacuation is Monroe County, and that's the county that includes the Florida Keys. But I can't remember in my 30 to 40 years on TV having an entire county with a mandatory evacuation. And the locals tell me that too. They're used to the evacuations here in the low-lying areas, in the areas that are flood-prone, mobile home parks, but they certainly are not used to having the whole county evacuated. There's about 22,000 people in the county, and they're urging them to go over towards Gainesville, Alachua County, where storm shelters will open up 4 p.m. this afternoon.
Gotcha. Understood. Fox Weather Storm Specialist Mike Seidel, thank you very much, and we'll check back in with you just a little bit. We need to track things out. So we've got Mike Seidel. He is out there in the beach. He moved over just a little bit. This is Keaton Beach, Florida, who sits firmly in the right in the A mark of where the storm is going to hit, that northeast quadrant. I mean, you are right there in the crosshairs, Mike. I hate to even say it like that, but that place is going to be under the gun. Where you're standing right now is not going to look like that by this time tomorrow.
No, later tomorrow afternoon, that water's going to start coming up. The wave action, look at this. This is about what we've had. Actually, it was almost a glassy surface this morning. Now we've got a light ripple. These are southeast winds running 8 to 10 miles an hour. That's about it. It's taking a little bit of an edge off the heat. Temperature right now is 85. Heat index about 95. So it's another hot, sticky Florida day. As you would expect, typically, the day or two before a hurricane, you get a fair amount of sunshine because you have a lot of sinking air, what we call compensating subsidence, around the periphery of the storm. But that's going to change tonight and tomorrow as the first showers get in here later on tonight. But the bulk of the issue is going to be after lunchtime tomorrow. Heavy rain starts to fall as the rain bands come in from the south and east. Then we'll start to see the surge late in the afternoon. Now, I mentioned low tide at 5:33 p.m., about the time we start to get the storm, Helene, moving towards the coast. But with that said, the tidal range here is only about 7 or 8 inches tomorrow, so that really doesn't matter whether it comes in at high tide or low tide. We're only going to be saving about that much. And when you're talking a surge potentially as high as 15 feet, Bob, that's minuscule. So all we can do is hope for the best, prepare for the worst. As far as the surge goes, it just remains to be seen how this develops and strengthens overnight as it comes up through the loop current over the water that's got water temps on the surface, 85 to 88 degrees, and not a whole lot of wind shear. So all systems are going. That's why the National Hurricane Center did up the winds a notch, maximum sustained winds at landfall at about 125 miles an hour. And what I've learned in the past, if that's what the forecast is when it comes in, and that's what verifies, that expect wind gust at least 125 miles an hour. And Bob, that's going to take down a lot of trees, not only here, but well inland, even though the winds are going to back off some up in Atlanta, which is basically just a big city in a forest, a lot of trees coming down there. And I was there for Opal, you were there for Opal, and remember how much power went out in that October morning back in 1995.
Yeah, that was bad. And Mike, please tell me you're not going to be on the beach when it comes in. You're going to be moving, right?
We are going to be back in Perry. We have a nice sturdy hotel in Perry. That's about 20 miles as a crow flies. So that takes us out of the surge zone. There's no way I'd be here unless I had a brick building and I was up about 25 feet, and that's not going to happen. We're going to go to Perry, and the fact that the storm is so fast moving, 20 miles inland, it's not going to make a whole bit of difference as far as the wind goes. Right. I mean, it's still going to be a very powerful, likely major hurricane, and they have ordered a mandatory evacuation from all of the county. This is Taylor County. There's about 22,000 residents. I'm not sure how many are going to evacuate. I doubt everybody is. They suggest you go east over to Gainesville. It's a 2-hour drive, or you can go west out of the storm zone through the Panhandle, or go north and west. But, you know, if you've got a fairly sturdy structure, we always tell you to run from the water and hide from the wind. Just make sure if you're staying put, stay in the house and avoid any areas that could be hit by trees. We have a lot of deaths, as you know, fatalities, Bob, when people are out driving in weather like we're going to have tomorrow night and Friday from here up into the southern Appalachians, and trees get knocked down on their cars and they unfortunately lose their life. So we don't want any of that. Just stay put till the winds die down and until everything kind of calms down, especially here in this area where the winds are going to gust easily over 100 miles an hour. And with the ground super saturated after we get all the rain, trees are going to be uprooted much easier than had we not had the rain.
Yeah, that's such a good point, Mike. So today you've got time to prepare. I mean, it's beautiful on the beach. I can see it. I know it's hot for sure, but by this time tomorrow, man, it better be done.
Yes.
Fox Weather Storm Specialist Mike Seidel, thank you very much. Yeah.